What makes this movie so disturbing is that it has parallels with our world, and it seems like it's a realistic future that could actually happen. And we're seeing indicators of that, of our civilization, humanity going in that same direction. Children of Men, I think, is one of the more important movies of the 21st century. It stars Clive Owen as Theo, a disillusioned man who was once part of activism. But anyway, he's a basic 9 to 5 job type of guy, and he's living in a world that's collapsing. He's in the United Kingdom, one of the few countries that are still standing, has some semblance of civilization because there's a worldwide fertility crisis. Other countries have collapsed, and people are going to the UK for refuge. I don't know why. Well, I mean, those other civilizations have collapsed, but I don't know why the UK would be any different, but it is in this movie. And you have a big conflict between the government and people bringing in illegal immigrants. There's checkpoints all over the place. There's some of this civilization seems normal. People have 9 to 5 jobs, but then you also have a lot of intense fighting between the government forces and the rebel forces. Well, the rebel forces they're actually led by this woman played by Julianne Moore, who's an ex-wife of Theo. Well, anyway, she sends her goons to kidnap this guy. She asks him to get some travel documents to help her transport a woman from point A to point B. That's all he really knows. They offer him some money. He's glad to see her. I like the dynamic between the two. They had a kid at one point, but they lost their kid. At some point, there was a flu pandemic, and they lost their child years ago. And they're both still living with the effects of that, even though they're split up. They're no longer married. Well, there's a lot happening in the civilization. We know about the flu pandemic. We know there's been some serious environmental situations, but at a certain point, 18 years ago, people just stopped having kids. They weren't able to have kids. And that sort of runs parallel with some of the things we're seeing right now in our civilization. The birth rate is dropping. A lot of people are blaming economics. A lot of people are blaming a lot of other stuff. But our birth rates are dropping, especially in the Western world, really across the world. The birth rates are dropping. And in this civilization right here, in this world right here, it's been 18 years since somebody had a kid. Well, anyway, yeah, he decides to go along with this assignment. They get these passport or whatever documents he needs to help them with this woman. Well, he meets this woman and eventually finds out this woman's name, she's pregnant. She's the first pregnant woman in over 18 years. And he's in a tricky situation where he's got to figure out whether he can trust the people in this rebel group. You know, they had this one woman who's with them. She's a midwife. He's got to figure out who he can really trust. And she was told, hey, just trust this guy. And that's why Julianne Moore's character sent Theo towards Key. Well, a big part of the movie is Theo trying to help this woman go from point A, watch them deal with certain individuals there, I'm not going to spoil it, to point B. They get helped by this really cool character played by Michael Caine. He's a friend of Theo. They call him a cheeky guy. He's a pretty fun character. And there's some really intense fighting in this movie between the government forces and the rebels. Really good chase. They're not flashy or anything. It all seems really realistic how their civilization is just crumbling. There's a scene where they're in a school and they're talking about how, well, the midwife who was with them, she's talking about how people kept having miscarriages years ago, and then at a certain point there was nobody booked on it, nobody scheduled to have kids. And she called her nursing friends or whatever, and they reported the same thing. That was really eerie. And this was happening while they're walking around an abandoned school. So we have abandoned schools popping up all over the place because it's just less of a child population right now. So I'm not saying this is exactly going to happen, but there are some indicators that if it happened at a slower rate, well, I'll just leave it at that. I think this is a really good cautionary tale. The movie doesn't go into any details as to, okay, why is this happening? But it's something to at least pay attention to. And that fighting scene between the government forces and the rebels, when that baby starts to cry, that's an incredible moment. I'll leave it at that. Really good movie, Children of Men. Check it out if you get a chance. I highly recommend it because this is a movie that depicts a future that is highly realistic.